Welcome to the Tech Insider, where we talk to the people who can give you the insights and trends that matter to you in your business. I'm Christine Grail with Leica Geosystems. I am thrilled to have with us today Bill Murphy. He is the Leica Geosystems Geomatic Sales and Support Specialist for the Mid Atlantic region. Welcome to our show, Bill.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here, Christine.
Excellent. So, Bill, I am curious. You spend a lot of time working with surveyors day in and day out. What is one of the toughest questions you've had lately that you've had to answer?
One of the toughest questions I would I would say probably has to go with you know moving the data from the field to the office. Basically that seems where the one challenge that we address on a regular basis, and we usually cure that with education and training and getting a good idea of the customer's workflow, and then what we need to adhere to that and make that as easy as possible for them. But I guess bottom line is, okay, it's the equipment is wonderful, it's great, it gathers the data. Now that I have it, what's the best way for us to get it to our engineers? That's the one we deal with on the lion's share of issues. So
Well, and you've been doing this for quite a long time. I think you've been with Leica for more than 20 years now, correct?
that's correct. Yep, going on 25 years now. So
So you probably get a lot of calls day in and day out, and you are answering a lot of questions. So it's interesting that that's the one that you get the most. I'm sure there are a lot of others, but we won't go into that right now.
yeah,
Going back before your days at Leica Geosystems, you actually worked for the US Navy as an intelligence specialist. I think that was 20 years in the 1980s to 2000 timeframe.
yep.
What is your biggest memory from that time period?
Well, I'd say the biggest memories from that time period are the challenges of saying goodbye to your friends and family when it's time to go. It was hard to do. When you're deployed in certain areas around the world, you don't it's hard when you're in the intel community because you can't tell your friends and loved ones where you're going. And uh, that's probably one of the biggest challenges. And of course, back then, you didn't have email, nobody had cell phones, and you relied on snail mail. So I mean, to just to get a letter, from your family, once every couple of weeks was something you always looked out for. But I through my career in the military, and in the intel community, especially, I've made some amazing friends and great teamwork, and they're still lifelong friends to this day. We have reunions every 4 or 5 years, so we can all get back together again and see each other. But wouldn't trade it for the world. Fantastic experience, fantastic education. It's that training was actually made for an easy transition for me. Coming into uh, uh, the then technology for Leica. So
Well, tell me a little bit about that because I believe it was while you were in the Navy that you started doing some survey work. And what was that like?
yeah,
I mean, surveying was quite a bit different back in
yeah,
the 80s and 90s than it is now.
yeah. It was. I was underway on chips for so long, and then the last 5 years of my Navy career, I was in a reserve capacity, doing the one weekend a month, 2 weeks a year thing. And during that time, I thought, well, I think I'll try surveying. I'm tired of being locked up in a skiff, a sensitive compartment, and information facility. I'm ready for the outdoors. I'm ready to be outside, and so I took a job surveying, and while I was still in the reserves at the same time, and I responded to an ad in a POB magazine one day while I was waiting to get in the truck, and lo and behold, I got a phone call from a couple folks from Leica, and they flew me up to the VIP lounge in Delta Terminal in Logan International Airport, interviewed me for a couple hours, and 2 weeks later, it was a done deal. And here I am.
So you started out surveying
Mhm.
in the field, and
Yep.
that was back when there was a lot of field work to be done. I mean, you talk boots on the
Oh, yeah.
ground, that was boots on the ground. That was heavy, hard work, and it still is. There's still a lot of outdoor work to be done, but I think we've seen
Yep.
that shift over time. What was it about land surveying that really drew you in?
Well, it's just, it just keeps me outside, keeps me moving, keeps me thinking. It's when it comes to that land surveying, there's always more than one way to skin a cat, so to speak. There's many ways to find the right answer, and that intrigued me, and that kind of like was, you know, a a direct reflection of, you know, how I handled raw intelligence data for the United States Navy. It's like you have to look at something, you have to evaluate it, you have to decide whether or not it's good or whether it's bad, and then disseminate that to the right folks. So it's kind of, there's a direct correlation there, when it comes to, you know gathering that info and making sure it's good at the end of the day.
Well, and I love how you describe that because I think especially back when you started and even into the early 2000s, serving was a profession that you looked at if you were really good at math. And it was really surveyors for a long time have considered themselves measurement experts, and they certainly are. But ultimately, what a surveyor is a problem solver, and the surveyors that have done really well in the profession are those that bring that problem solving mentality, that creativity, that think outside the box. And it
That's
sounds like
right.
really one of the things that you appreciated the most about that
That's
career.
that's right. It's being able to, figure it out based upon the evidence at hand. What you're finding. It's and come up with the right answer.
Well, and you pretty quickly moved into Leica Geosystems on the technology side of the business. But it's my understanding that you've spent most of your career not really in sales, but more of a consultant role, walking alongside the people that you're working with day in and day out. And I'm sure that has brought you into a number of different projects. And I know that I've seen a few on the monitoring side, and maybe that's the one you want to talk about. But what project is there a project that you've been involved with that really stands out to you?
Um, One particular project, and would probably be the Dulles Airport expansion project, and I was published in American Surveyor magazine in 2006. Made front cover for that particular project, and that was before we had a a monitoring segment within Leica Geosystems. Back then, Leica wasn't segmented as it is today. So um, I had, as a direct rep, go out and go after that business. And I remember being involved with the very first installation of a tunnel management system. It was called TMS back in the day, where we using the old uh, 1000 series and 1100 series instrument to help guide the TBM driving under the ground at Dulles Airport, which eventually was meant to eliminate the big moon buggies that used to be there when you got your airplane ticket. You boarded one of those big giant, uh, look like an oversized bus with big balloon tires, and it would take you out to the tarmac. Well, the objective was just to uh, construct a tunnel system underground to eliminate those. And that was probably a very fascinating project to be involved with, and it was very successful. And it was also the installation of the very first, one of the very first geomos systems in the country too, as well, which you know warns the construction personnel if anything is been compromised, if any of the existing structures start to move where there could be people in there based upon underground construction. It will alert you, alert all the the necessary folks to make sure they if they need to get people out of the way or get them out of there, for any reason. So that was a great project. It was.
What did you like the best about that project? I mean, there must have been a number of challenges, especially when you're doing things for the first time and you're experimenting to some extent, but there's not there's no margin for error. It has to be right,
No.
And so that must have been a little nerve-wracking.
It it was. I think the best part about was actually getting down into the tunnels themselves and watching the instrumentation automatically turn and mark the profile on the underground and on the earth where that tunnel boring machine was going to start its dig. That was cool. So it's and then then going completely on a different project. Back before we had to do it, back before like I had a public safety group, it was again up to us as reps to go. Well, I'm a salesman. It's uh, we're, we had to sell to the police, and the state police for crash reconstruction and forensics. And I actually one project where I was a simulated victim. So they and I had to train police officers how to run total stations, and that's kind of like it's herding pigeons because you're trying to teach a law enforcement officer how to set up a tripod. And they look at you like you got three heads, and it was fun, but it was a challenge. And then and that was another front page published in American Surveyor magazine back in 2004, and they basically spilled fake blood all over me. They positioned me on a flight of stairs and threw a bunch of empty brass shell casings around me to make believe I was a shooting victim, and then mapped, using the old 1100 robots, mapped, the crime scene around me and did all that. And but that was great. And another great. And then public safety group came along and took over that business. So, but that was
Oh,
that
too
was
bad for
another
you.
one.
That sounds like a fantastic experience. I will have to go back and look for those covers because I was not aware that you had been the
Oh yeah, I'll send it
professional.
to you. I'll send it to you. So
It's
the name of the article was forensic artist. So it's great.
excellent. Wow. Well, I'm sure that that was some really fun memories for you. I bet
Mhm.
that you've seen technology change quite a bit since you first got involved in
Yeah.
surveying, working with Leica Geosystems. What amazes you the most as you look at that evolution of technology?
What amazes me, it amazes me the effect the technology had on the speed of surveying. It's gone from a certain pace to breakneck speed, but it can be a double edged sword. Because of what comes along with that technology, it comes to technology's ability to do a lot of the thinking for you. So you got to stay sharp and not let lose sight of the fact that good old fashioned theory and brain work is still got to be behind the scenes all the time.
Well, I know I see a lot of surveyors talking about button pushers, and you don't want a generation of button pushers, people who just go
No,
out and push the button and they're okay, it's done for me. You really want to continue to inspire and encourage, especially that next generation that's coming along, those digital natives, to understand
absolutely.
what's happening behind the scenes. Like, yes, the technology is so automated, it's got the
Hmm.
artificial intelligence built in, it's doing all of these things for you, but they still have to understand why, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're I'm involved with the Young Surveyors of America Association. We go out when asked to meet with young people who haven't quite figured out what they want to be in life yet, and we introduce them into this field of surveying, and let them know that it's a great endeavor if you ever want to do it. It keeps you working with cutting edge technology. You're not stuck in an office every day. You're going to different places, day in and day out, and that's a struggle, to draw in the younger folks, and we're doing the best we can.
Now you're working with a lot of different technologies. You're working with total stations, GNSS. Lately, we have the AP20, which is the smart prism pole with the total stations, right?
Oh yeah.
What is do you have a favorite technology that you work with?
Um, my favorite technology has to be robotic. It's the robotic surveying technology is always fascinating to me. It's kind of, you know, it's I'm an artist in my own sense. I do mosaic work, chainsaw art. I do a whole bunch of stuff. I've mixed media, some sculpture, and I look at the surveyor as an artist as well. He's and the robotic total station technology is it's made that amazing. The AP20 is great, don't get me wrong, but the robot itself, is gives that surveyor the ability to really concentrate on what he's doing. And like I said, he's a surveyor. Topography is his art, and the ground is his canvas, and that prism pole which he uses is his paintbrush, and he reads what he sees and paints a picture of what's on the ground. That's how I look at it.
Love that description. That is not one that I've heard before, but it totally makes sense, especially coming from an artist. I would love to see some of your work. We should have had you showcase some of that on the wall behind you. What is
It's
it that you love the
all
most?
around.
Exactly. We'll have to have you take your camera around later or something. What is it
Well,
that you love the most about your current role? Because you work very closely with your clients. You're helping them solve problems. You're
mhm.
selling to them, but you're
Yeah.
really helping them solve problems at the end of the day. They need to work faster. They need to be more productive. They need to make their teams, they're having trouble finding staff these days, and so they need to find ways to close that labor gap. What do you like the
Mm.
most about what you do?
What do I like most about what I do? Cash and checks, baby, cash and checks. It's
Let's just be honest, right?
just kidding. Just kidding. I love seeing my customers happy and making money. That's what I really love. I love training and the look of accomplishment when my customers can look me square in the eye and say, "Bill, I got it." That's what I love the most, really.
It's a very satisfying feeling to know that you have really helped someone achieve something or overcome a problem, and they are it's a team effort, right? It's really a partnership when you start working with a client.
Yes, it is. It is. I don't care what anybody says. It is all about the relationship. Yeah, it is.
Well, I am wondering why you've stayed with Leica Geosystems for so long. I mean, you've been for more than 20 years now. There must be something that keeps you here. I'm sure that you've had your good days and bad days like anyone, right? But
Yeah.
why do you believe in Leica as a brand?
As a brand, first and foremost, I would say our reputation. Is it's second to none. When it comes to quality, endurance, accuracy, and precision. Um, Injecting real world meaningful technology into the geospatial world, especially specific technologies with regards to imaging, tilt, auto height, and the impacts these have had on the survey workflow. But uh, that's that's my general opinion about that. So
Yeah, there's a lot of innovation. I feel like there's new innovation coming out, every 6 months, every year, every 2
mhm.
years, there's something new, and we're always watching to see, especially being part of Hexagon, because there are
Right.
innovations coming out at the Hexagon level too, and we're able to bring those to our customers. So it is a fun industry to be in. There's a lot of technology, but going back to what you said before, it really is, at the end of the day, it's all about the people and those relationships and being able to truly help people that we're working with day in and day out. Is there
Yeah.
anything that you've encountered being a technology advocate? Is there anything that you've encountered that has surprised you, either in the way that your customers and your clients have adopted the technology, or the way that the technology has enabled something that maybe you didn't anticipate?
Um, I would have to I would have to say what surprises me is the speed of how much of what can be accomplished by one person. Because I have a lot of one person customers and the amount of stuff that that can accomplish, and at the speed that they can accomplish it in due to the technology is amazing. Is amazing. So and we have challenges here and there with it, but it's just we have such a great team behind us all the time, behind me, um, that helps take care of them when needed. But it just amazes me how fast something can get done by a single person. That what whether they do that all the time because of safety considerations, but the ones that do, it just amazes me. So
Well, and with the amount of time that you've spent in this profession as well, that has
mhm,
to be
yeah,
really, eye-opening, to see how far it's come, and really in
yeah,
such a short amount of time. So,
absolutely, yeah.
that's fun for me to watch as well.
Hmm.
You answer a lot of questions from people. A lot of them are probably related to technology, but you probably also encounter some misconceptions when you're out there trying to help surveyors understand what the potential is for the technology. What are some of the biggest misconceptions that you've encountered?
Um, I would say, oh gosh, that one's a good. That the technology eliminates one's need for the responsibility to check their work. They get complacent with how much this technology does for them, and they just assume that everything they've done at the end of the day is 100% spot on when, no matter how technologically advanced the equipment and the capabilities are, that you can't lose sight of the responsibility to check your work. So that's a big misconception that some of these field personnel feel, that they at the end of the day when they finish something up, they just pack it up, throw it in the truck, and run back to the office without really sitting down and going over what they've done. So
Yeah, you still have to pay attention. You still have to
mhm,
know what's going on. Again, behind the scenes, you still need that solid foundation of education and training. And
mhm.
then if you have all those things, then the technology helps tremendously, right?
That's right. That's right.
Okay, great. Um, what you've probably seen a number of things come across in terms of mistakes that people have made, and you get those calls, "Bill, I'm in a bind here. Help me out." You know, are there any mistakes that are common that you see often, or that you get calls about often, and you're trying to help them figure that out? We
Um,
won't name
yeah,
any names.
it's, I would say, the mistakes, a lot of calls I get are for routine calibration and in adjusting your equipment. They'll complete a project, and then the end results is, their precision at the end of the day wasn't what they expected, and then after me asking a few questions and getting a few answers out of them, it's just it a lot of times it turns out to be a simple matter of taking your instrumentation out and adjusting it on a regular basis, and of course there's a right way and a wrong way to do that, and I train continuously on that, especially with with the newer up and coming folks that get their hands on our equipment. So it check and adjust and calibration are one of the definitely the lion's share of calls I field, with regards to supporting the folks out in the field.
That makes sense, but again, it goes back to
Mhm.
understanding the basics. Know the basics,
Mhm.
follow the basics, have those standard operating procedures in place, and make sure you follow them, right? It's really easy
Right.
to get busy. You get
Yeah.
busy and you don't have time and you just wanna keep moving, but you've gotta slow down and make sure that everything is set up correctly and calibrated correctly.
That's right. And if they haven't done it in a while, then I'll say, okay, what do you do? What are you guys doing next week? Let's meet up somewhere. We'll go to a park somewhere close by where it's nice and quiet. Make sure that we're in the shade and not being blasted by bright sunlight, and do a general review with them, on the check and adjust procedures. And again, after they've done it a couple times, and me standing over their shoulder looking at them to make sure they're doing it correctly, and then they look at me and say, "Okay, man, I got it. Let me go." And get a call the next day. He goes, "Well, Bill, it was great, man. We knocked it out of the park." So I
That's
like hearing
exactly what they needed.
it. Mhm.
Exactly. Well,
So,
you've worked with a number of high schools, I believe. You're getting involved in, like you said, the Young Surveyors initiatives. You're working with the young people, trying to play that mentor role as well. And as at the same time, you've seen technology change a lot of things that happen in the profession. So the skills that are needed now aren't necessarily the same as the skills that were needed 10, 20 years ago. What are those top skills that today's geospatial professional needs to bring in order to be successful?
um, I would say the skills to continuously fine tune your education to keep up with the technology, but not lose sight of the fact, that as a surveyor, being curious by nature is a skill. Solving the unknown, being investigative and persuasive, and those are all key skills that are required to do this. So, and that's above and beyond the normal math and trigonometry, geometry, and all that kind of stuff. But your skills and being able to know that there's more than one way to solve an unknown or solve a problem. Those are something you continuously hone on a regular basis. And
Always stay curious, always keep an open mind and think outside the box. And I
yeah.
think, that would position just about anyone for success today
Mhm.
because everything is changing for just about every profession, I think.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what the future holds. Is there anything that you are watching or reading, maybe listening to on a podcast that you think our audience would find interesting?
um I'm currently reading a a book that's was originally published in 1946, and it's Man's Search for Meaning, uh, by Viktor Frankl, and a very profound book. I think every every man should read, and it's it definitely gives me a good feeling that we could overcome whatever struggles and suffering that may happen to anyone in anyone's given life. So that's the book I'm currently reading right now. Man's Search for Meaning. And and let's see, what do we like to do? We love watching action adventure movies. Investigation Discovery is one. Reruns of Last Man Standing, Friends, Mike and Molly and Mom. So we'll watch those. So and if I had any recommendations with regards to that kind of stuff, I'd say go see The Beekeeper with Jason Statham. Awesome movie. Awesome.
All
So,
right. I will have to take you up on that recommendation.
yeah.
Well, Bill, thank you so much. It has been fascinating learning about you. Thank you for sharing about your career and your journey. And I look forward to having you as a guest on our program again at some point in the near future.
Oh, thank you very much. It was my pleasure. It was an honor. So.
My pleasure as well. Thank you. Be sure to check out the description for additional resources on this topic. If you enjoyed this content, give us a like. If you'd like to see more of this content, be sure you subscribe. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on the Tech Insider.